Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 202, and I'm delighted to welcome onto the podcast today Performance Director at MK Dons, Simon Crampton. Simon, how are we doing?
Good, Ben. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, mate. It's only been a few days since we've caught up down at the Dons, and I know you've had a nice little 4-0 away victory in between, back in the Northwest, like it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Always good after a long away trip, that one, to come home with a big smile on your face and 3 points and 4 goals. So yeah, that was most welcome.
Brilliant, mate. That's good to see. Well, Sam, we've got a few different things that we want to cover today on the podcast from what you spoke about for us on the event. But to kick us off, it'd be interesting just to go into your background and what led up to the role at the Dons.
Yeah, so I originally went to university in 1998. I travelled 250 miles south from the Northwest and went and did a degree in sports therapy at the University of North London. So at the time, sports therapy was very new. It'd only been running for 2 years, the course prior to me doing it. It was the only university doing it. I had got offered a place on a physio course, but I was sold the dream that, this would be pure sport. It was what I wanted to do. And when I graduated, I'd be the equivalent of a physio. So I did that, and it was a brilliant course. And, a lot of what I learned on there, and there was brilliant lectures on it and everything. And, a lot of what I learned, I still practice today. But unfortunately, when I graduated, it wasn't a known profession. And I started to do some work at Queen's Park Rangers, and nobody really knew what you did, what your skill set was. Do you do massage? Is it more sports science based? So with time, I thought, right, well, I need to go on. And at the same time, chartered physiotherapy had become, the physiotherapy had become a protected title. So when you were looking to get other jobs in professional sport, they were looking for that chartered status. So I took the plunge, went back to university, 2004, did an MSc in rehab science, which gave me the ability to become a chartered physio, HCPC registered. On the back of that, I started working at London Wasps. I was working in the NHS. Wasps was a part-time gig, and I sort of was in talks maybe making it more full-time. And then I got a call from a friend who had been working in a sports science capacity at MK Dons, saying there was a physio role. So it was probably typical of sport. I went down for an interview on a Thursday, and I didn't really know what to expect, I guess. I was from a rugby background. I played rugby, that was my sport. I didn't really follow football a great deal. And when I did my background research, I saw they were in League Two, and I was thinking, oh, well, that's the equivalent of the 4th division in rugby. So I was expecting, sort of a dilapidated clubhouse and a couple of boys drinking, beer at the bar. And I went and I saw the National Hockey Stadium. I was like, wow. And I went to interview and did an okay job at the interview, and then met the chairman and got shown the plans for the new stadium, which was being built at the time, and the passion from the chairman, the vision, what was potentially around the corner. It really inspired me, and I was really drawn to it. So, well, that's brilliant. And on the way home, I got a phone call offering me the job on the premise that I could start the following Monday. So it was sort of very whirlwind, and I've been here now. It's my 17th season. So it was the right decision. I'm sure there's been moments in my career when I thought, was that the right decision? But it definitely has, and it's been a unique journey in the fact that my sort of career has developed as the football club developed. So most of my roles I've been in have been sort of new roles, blank canvas roles, in setting up, leading a department, initially as an academy physio, then as a first team physio, and then now in the position of performance director. So yeah, it's been some journey.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that in terms of how the roles have developed. So is it mainly the 3 titles that you've held along the way?
Yeah, so my initial role was academy physiotherapist, and I remember fondly on my first day, I won't even call it a treatment room. It was a dressing room with a dilapidated box of lotions and potions and a rickety old treatment couch, and I'd set up in there, and I went out to get my first patient, which I thought would be academy players, and this huge monster Clive Platt, 6'3" giant of an old school centre forward, was stood there, and I politely told him, I'm the academy physio, and he explained to me in certain words, no, you're the only physio. They get in here and look at my back. So I was brought in as an academy physio, and my friend who'd been working there had been doing sports science, and he got a sports therapy background as well. So he'd been doing some of the injury stuff, but there'd been a couple of people in previous to me delivering on the physio side, but at the time there was no one in. So I was, literally the only physio, and new to, full-time football as well. So it was a real steep learning curve for me. And then sort of towards the end of that season, so that would have been 2006, towards the end of that season, it was Martin, I was the manager, he left and his team left, and then I sort of moved into, right, well, we need to sort of set up a proper academy provision now, and we employed two other physios to come in and deliver in the academy, and I became purely first team, and I probably did that then for another year to 2 years, and then as the department grew, I then had the head of sports medicine title. I did that for probably 10 years, and then we moved, and then as the department grew again, and we had a change in personnel, a change in manager, and then it was all aimed at, we'd gone through a process of having different sports scientists in, people delivering the sports science, the performance side, but then being linked to managers, and then moving on with that manager, and it was to almost get some continuity into the department. So I then became head of sports science and medicine, and then more recently, so start of 21 season, our old chief exec left, and the chairman, it was very sudden, and the chairman sort of gave me a phone call and said, look, there's two people who want to take the club forward. One's yourself, and the other is Liam Sweeting, who I have a real close relationship with here. So Liam is the sporting director, and I take the role of performance director. Between us both, now we manage a football team. So Liam looks after all the glory stuff, so the players, the coaching staff, whereas I pick up everything else. So I manage sports science and medicine, sort of our grounds team, facilities, the kit department, operations, logistics, all the non-glamorous side of it.
Brilliant. And can you talked about it there, and I know there's a lot of things that have happened along the way in terms of building a team, but can you give a bit of an overview in terms of when you stepped up to first team, what the actual team looked like in terms of numbers compared to where it is now? Yeah,
so when I first came in, Paul Ince, when I moved into the first team environment more, for full time as my job title, as I said, I've been doing it all the way through my first season. Paul Ince was the manager, and he'd obviously seen it done at a high level from all the clubs he'd been at, and he brought in two masseurs with him who he'd had at a previous club. So they came and joined us, but they were only there for that year. And then we had a fitness coach. So it was me, academy physio, a couple of masseurs. So actually we were quite well equipped. But then, that manager moved on, another one came in, and then sort of reality hit a little bit, and it was me. And then at that time we'd started this mentoring scheme where we were getting students in from various universities, predominantly University of Hertfordshire. So we were using a lot of students in, and one of them who did really well was Adam Ross. So we took Adam on as sort of like in an assistant capacity initially. He's still here to this day, so he's in his, what must be his 15th year now. And again, he's another one whose then careers developed as the club's developed. So, in the early days we were limited, but it was more probably from the facility side we were limited. We didn't have a gym. We were doing various contra deals with local gyms, and something would happen, we'd fall out. We'd be trying to find another gym again. So we've always been okay with staffing, but as I say, the facilities are the big thing that we've been able to develop. And I think the big important thing is, as we've developed through the club, is the continuity in the staff that we've had. So, with Adam, we've got Tom Bromley here, who's been here a long time as well, and running things, mentoring schemes that we run now, sandwich placements. It means that, we have students with us that work with us for a year to go back to university, and, we can sort of hopefully then have a job for them when they graduate and progress them through. And that's something we've done and had great success with.
Yeah, it's really good to see and hear about the progress. One thing I was going to ask for the listeners is, when you're going through that hiring process and making that decision on whether to put someone in a role or not, are there any sort of standouts for you in terms of, not necessarily on the technical side on what people can deliver, but more the personal side? Any sort of standouts on what you see and sort of catches your eye, the likes of Adam and Tom and the others?
Yeah, I think, some of it, interview are tricky, aren't they? And it's like a forced process where someone comes in, and it's we've tried all sorts of different things. Someone's coming in, they're nervous. You sat at a desk with them potentially. You've got a list of technical questions. You're trying to make a judgment on their personality and their fit based on their answers to those technical questions. Over the years, we tried to explore their personality a little bit more. There might be a presentation element that we asked them to do. If they get through the first phase, we bring them in and they come and spend a day with us and spend time with the team. And they're all the sort of this when we're trying to learn about the soft skills. But it's really it's a very difficult environment, and ultimately you sometimes have to sort of get them in, try them, and see how they work. And if things don't work, that's what a probation period's for. As harsh as it sounds, but that's often the reality. But I think in terms of what we look for, well, on the technical side, obviously experience is important, but I think it's something that makes that person stand out. So in the amount of CVs physios and sports scientists will have across the country delivered to them, which is from new graduates, and their experience has been working in the university clinic or working in the university gym, covering the London Marathon, and everyone's done that. It doesn't stand you out. So it's what is on your CV as a new sort of practitioner that's going to stand you out. What's your added benefit to coming and joining us? So what other experiences you've got? And it doesn't always have to be in sport. Something can be very transferable in another industry or another population. I quite like taking people in who've had experience at younger age in hospitality sectors, because it shows, potentially shows that they've got a level of interpersonal skills if they've been having a front of house position or that sort of thing. So that's really important. I mean, we want ultimately people like who work with a long time, Adam and Tom. It's it's their relentlessness, it's their work ethic, it's their personal drive to be the best versions of themselves. And can you pick that up on someone, in a half-hour interview? Probably not, but you can. There's little signs that you can see in their their personal development. You asked the question in your podcast, what have you, where do you get your CPD from? That's something I always ask. And we'll ask questions, and it might be a technical question, and someone might not know the answer, but that doesn't faze me. What I want to know is, how do you find out that answer? How are you going to tell me that? What's your go-to? Who do you call? What do you read? What do you look up? And it's about getting that process, and I think that's really important to me. And I think you can tell a lot by the way someone answers those questions, from their personality and how they're going to get on.
Yeah, brilliant. And in terms of building this team, Simon, I've obviously met the guys coming down there and seeing how they work, not only as individuals, but also as a team. They link in very well together, don't they? In your role, when you're developing this team, obviously it's made up of individuals, but what are some main considerations for you when trying to develop this team that's going to be effective for the players and the club?
Yeah, I think, I've had this a lot now in my in the new role. Now I've suddenly inherited a lot more departments that I'm managing, and I think I did this sort of naturally previously, but then it's trying to put some of the science to what you did before. And I think you look at some of the theories around leadership and the different leadership models, where it's transformational, transactional, and I've got a transformational approach, and we follow. This is not ours. This is it is well documented. I think it started off in the military originally, but a leadership model that has high levels of challenge, support, and vision. So first and foremost, they've got to understand, have role clarity, know what their role is. I still hear to this day of people in the industry not having job descriptions. So it needs to be really clear. This is your job. This is your job. This is your accountabilities. These are your responsibilities, and holding people accountable, regular PDR processes, and that sort of thing, to making sure people are delivering their roles. But also in that vision, it's where does your role fit in the in the realization of a bigger vision, the vision of the football club. So here our vision is to become a sustainable championship football club. So everything we're doing from sports science and medicine and the other departments, how is your work, how is your role contributing to that? And that's really important, and it gives you something to hold people accountable to. Then you've got to give the support. So we talk about things like performance enablers, so information, incentives. Have you got all the information you need? Have you got that role clarity? Have you got the information you need to do your job? Have you got the instruments to do your job? So they could be structural things. They could be organizational instruments. So there's lots of different sort of instruments that we've got. It's not just all about equipment. And then the incentives. So obviously the big incentive is money, but that's not always conducive to high performance. If everything rolls on getting promoted and getting a bonus, that's not always conducive. But things like feedback and the way we deliver feedback. So an incentive is you're doing a good job. The fact that you're regularly feedbacking people, telling them they're doing a good job, giving them recognition. People coming onto your podcast or onto your networking events. It's kind of like giving them that forum so they can show to people what they're doing. It's another good incentive that people have. So I think following that leadership structure, and now I'm trying to get it across into the other departments. And I've actually had to neglect sports science and medicine, and fortunately I've got some good people in there over the last year and come away from it. And I had to do that, for two reasons. One, I'm no longer Simon Crampton, the physio, and delivering to the players day in, day out, as I was doing before. I needed to come away from that. But two, I wanted them to blossom. They've been here a long time, and they need to find their own way now, and take the department forward how they see it want to go forward. And it's given me the chance to move into the other areas, which probably needed a bit more support.
So with that process, do they now carry that forward and sort of act as they could become accountable to each other without you necessarily leading it as much? Is that now, with that process you've talked about, the challenge, support and vision, is that now sort of within the team and they'll now challenge each other and make sure things are right?
Yeah, so it's something we've promoted across all the departments. As I say, we've presented it, and this is our model, and we've expanded on some great work that other people have done. It's not something, as I say, we've invented. It's something we've gone to the research. And when I was in this new role, before I was reading lots of technical based journals and books, and now it's all about leadership. So it's something I've researched heavily and try to find a fit that I know is what is it we do. But yeah, it goes into, it is in the departments, and they meet regularly, and I think it's about challenging. We talked about the support. I didn't come on to the challenge, but the challenge is equally as important. So in the right way, I'm not going to go in, and although I have done at times, but I tend not to try this approach. I try and sort of point out if something's not working well, point that out, what the reasons for, what could have been better. I challenge all the staff where I don't want to hear about the problems. I want to hear about the solutions to their problems, which is, again, I'm not the only person who does that. It's another good sort of leadership model, and it encourages people to think and talk, and they know that encourages them to then talk. I'm putting it over here because they're in the room behind me, but it encourages them to talk. And if they've got an issue that they know it's not working and needs to improve, they need to find a solution together. And and that's the challenge to them. And then they'll then come knocking on my door with a proposal for they want to get the next piece of equipment, whatever it is, to sort out this problem, and they give me a proposal for it, and then I can say yes or no on it. And it's so far it's a system that's working. And as I say, we do it across the departments, but it's also got to be very organic and adaptable, because things change in football very, very quickly.
Because how do you find that balance, Simon, between giving people exposure and sort of learning themselves, which, like, I'm sure everyone listening is going to have an element of experience for that, being in a position, and actually you coming out the other side and thinking, I've learned a pretty valuable lesson there, which I probably wouldn't have learned not being able to go through that experience, but also you having sort of known and seen that happen before and giving your input. Like, where's the balance to that? Like, putting people in a position where they can learn themselves and you guiding it?
Yeah, it's tricky, because it's very, very difficult not to be hands-on at times for me, because I've done it for so long. And I'll regularly, we're all based at the stadium. We're in the darker steps of the stadium, and my office is very close to the treatment room, and I've missed not being in the treatment room in this new role. So I regularly go in there, and I can see something, and I think, oh, I could just do this, or I haven't thought about that. And again, it's instilling the confidence in the players. They need to build trust. They've got that now, but they need to build trust with the players. So I couldn't, and that's why I said to you before, I needed to come out of the department. So I wasn't doing that. And the practitioners who are in there now need to have the trust. I think if there was something, I think there's levels, isn't there? If there's something that's going to be a significant detriment to whatever it might be, whether it's performance or a player's recovery or the injury management, then obviously I'm going to step in. But again, it's doing it in the right way, where you need to encourage the staff member that it's what the outcome needs to be, but you need that staff member to get to that outcome. By you might drop something, or you might sort of the way you communicate it, alter the conversation tone or whatever it might be, and then also, oh yeah, and then and they get there. So I think that there is a skill to it, which I'm still learning as well. As I say, my head's in all the leadership books now, and how can I keep developing, and how can I pass on all my experience and knowledge to learn sports science and medicine, but in the right way, so people aren't looking over the shoulder every 5 minutes.
So how easy is it for you to cross over from the things that you've learned in your previous roles to other areas of the club that maybe, I'm guessing you didn't think that you'd end up working with, and it's something that you're maybe having to adapt to as well?
Yeah, I think there is. it's a really good question. I think there is lots of transferable skills that that we do. Ultimately, we're still working in football, so we've still, the vision's the same. Whether you're someone who comes in part time and washes our kit for us, or whether you're a cleaner, or whether you're our head groundsman, the vision's the same. We want to become a sustainable championship football club. So to our cleaner, we need that. To our cleaner, we need the place to be as clean, as professional looking as it can be, and it's how we sort of give them that vision, and then give them the support that they need, and also the challenge when it's not. But that's no different to saying to one of our S&C coaches, we need our players to be strong and robust and capable of the demands of League One football week in, week out. It's the vision's the same. It's a different outcome that they're trying to they're putting in to try and get to that vision. So it's I've had to upskill in a lot of areas as well. I guess. I mean, my garden now looks unbelievable because I've had to really upskill in areas of stuff, the groundsman. And again, why I needed to sort of step away a little bit from sports science and medicine last season, so I could focus on some of these other departments, because there's been some big challenges in and around the club with new training venues during all this as well. We changed our pitch. We had a 14-year-old Deso, and we've now put in a hybrid pitch. So there's been some real big challenges, and to sort of manage that side of it from a strategy point of view, but also whilst keeping an eye on the budgets, etc. It's been challenging. So I think just to go back to the original question, I think ultimately, as long as you are clear in what the vision is, and how to support people and know how to challenge people appropriately, you can the skills are very transferable to wherever you're working.
I was going to say that. So in terms of just going into that vision, I guess it's been somewhat easier from you coming from the football side, because that's the result of everything that's happening, isn't it, in terms of what's going on the pitch. So then being able to transfer that into all these different areas must be not easy, but an easier way of you actually understanding the impact that all these different things have on performance.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think that's one of the reasons, where we got into this position, is because, I suppose it can work both ways. But the point is, when in some of sort of the directorship roles that we have at the football club, in the past, individuals may have had a background in a different discipline, so marketing or finance, for example. And although may have had experience working in football, they've never been at it at a grassroots level in terms of cleaning up dressing rooms at the end of the game and helping the kit man load the van, and working till 11 o'clock at night because you've got a medical to do, whatever it might be. All those sort of things that both Liam Sweeting and I have both seen, and I think it really allows us to know what's important, and some of the factors which may I keep going back to the cleaner, but I tell our cleaner they're the most important person within our football club, because we're big believers in first impressions, and who comes through that the door next, we don't know. It could be a player we're trying to sign, it could be the chairman, it could be a player who's having a bad day and he walks in and the dressing room's still in a tip from the day before. It's going to put him in a further bad mood. So it's just having that eye on it all the time, isn't it? The attention to detail. And I guess you learn that when you've had sort of a long career in football from some of the managers that you worked with in the past, some of the more old school managers, and you didn't want to put a foot wrong because the consequences were dire. And it's just little things. I remember an old manager of ours going mental because the fridge hadn't been stocked up with water, but the labels were the wrong way around. And I've learned so much from that moment, because it was, as much of the time I thought, what's the problem? But, his argument was, well, in shops, from a marketing point of view, if you go in, the coat's always facing the way, so you can see the label, it's more appealing. That's why the labels are colourful. Let's do the same. We want the players to go in, get a bottle, we want them to hydrate. And, that was like very early on in my career. And, the manager was ahead of his time for stuff like that. But it just sort of, that attention to detail, it really opened my eyes to things. And, now, as much as we're nowhere near perfect and we're a long way from being perfect, we're functioning well as a League One football club, but we're into the constraints of the League One football club budget. But I think that's one of the things that we look at now, is putting our detail to everything. And again, as I say, that's from the experience that Liam and I have had from being on the shop floor for all those years.
Yeah, brilliant. You gave a great presentation for us on the pre-sign medical, the process, and you went into great detail for us. And some of the things that you covered in that presentation were just the realities of what goes on at football clubs, where you do so much work and sometimes things just go over the top of you, and different decisions get made. So I didn't know how to structure this question. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to ask. But how do you get that message across to younger coaches and also stop them being discouraged when things like that happen?
So you mean if we do a medical, you mean, and is that what you mean? If we do a medical?
Yeah, not necessarily always a medical, because I'm sure you'll know as well as everyone listening that these things aren't just in that sort of process with a medical, but other things happen all the time, don't they? Where we might think we can have a great impact and we might not, but we might go against what you might put a lot of work into something and then you don't really see an outcome out of it, like whatever that is, not just medicals. But how do you then basically pick a member of staff up and they're sort of getting discouraged?
Yeah, no, sorry, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, it happens all the time, doesn't it? So you know, I can plan. We planned at length in case we got to the playoff final, the playoffs and the playoff final. We planned at length, and I'm sure every other team who was in and around it did as well. But obviously we put all that work in, and there was a couple of days work into stuff what our plans would be logistically, etc., etc. Lots of people involved with it, and then it didn't happen. But that's not bad work. That's brilliant work, and I think that's the way we sort of get it across to the staff: is put the effort, you put the work in, you've learned from it. If that event ever comes up again, you know the process you need to follow. Keep that work. You've still got that work. So you know, it's just. I think going back to the medical, my first ever medical was on a player called Jude Sterling, and I'd been in post for 2 months. I was sort of very naive, new to football, never considered that I'd have to do a pre-signing medical. Yeah, I joined in September. This would have been the 1st of January, so it was New Year's Day. I get to the training, the stadium it was, we had a game, and the manager tells me we've got a medical in half an hour. I had no idea what to do. There was no one else here working with me. I had no one to sort of bounce ideas off. And I just sort of went with the thing, well, I've got to pretend that every body part's injured and try and prove or disprove that body part's injured. And that's what I did. And it was a long process, much to the players' dismay. But from that, it made me think, right, well, I can't be in that situation again. So, you know, straight away, I didn't have a medical, but I designed a medical process. So that knew that meant that whenever that happened again, and I got half an hour to do a medical, I'd got something in place that I could wheel out and do. And I think that's the same with the question you're asking, is that, you know, as much as it seems like wasted work at the time, you will use it again. You know, it will, whatever it might be, the experience you've gone through to get there, you know what you need to do, you know who you need to ask, you know what you need to look up, who you need to, you know, speak to, converse with, whatever it might be, and you can just relay that process. And I think those processes are just real key CPD moments, real key learning moments. And something I've been very, you know, not great at is then documenting them and going away and reflecting on it. You know, when you look at the research into sort of performance management, continuing professional development, you know, we've gone from everything being very formalized to then people saying, well, actually, informal CPD, informal learning is more beneficial, to now having this mixed model. But it's how do you capture those corridor conversations, that work that never ever comes to anything? How do you capture it? So I think to have like your own process of, you know, it doesn't have to create more work for yourself. It only has to be a brief sort of document, but you know, it's part of your CPD. It's just so important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's something that's come up a lot on the podcast in terms of learning from not necessarily always mistakes, is it? But just situations that come up that you've had to deal with. And I don't think you appreciate it so much at the time, do you? Because it can be frustrating, all the rest of it. But time and time again, I speak to people and they bring up situations where they're like that. And I learned so much from it. But it's hard, isn't it, to get that balance between exposing people to that and then giving the right advice at the right time.
Yeah, no, it is. It's tricky. And no, I think I'm a positive nature, and I just always try and take the positives out of those situations and feed that back. And if that member of staff is, you know, I spent loads of time to this, and the manager said it's terrible, or I'm not going to use it, it's like, but it's a brilliant piece of work. What have you learned from it? Do a reflection and tell me what you've learned from doing this piece of work. Use it to your advantage, and it's so important.
What's the sort of approach you'd take in terms of staff? And I know it might not be directly with the sports science guys now, but on that reflective process, is there anything that you've put in place for the guys to, and I know probably doing the presentations last week probably helped quite a bit with that, but is there anything that you do normally where the guys can sort of sit back and reflect on the work they've done, the impact they've had, and that sort of thing? Is there anything that you've put in place?
Yeah, so funny enough, we're just working through it now. So previously in the old role in sports science and medicine, we had a PDR process. Obviously, we're not just a football club. We've got a hotel and wider business interests, and all come under one group. So there was an internal PDR process that we follow, but it wasn't really fit for purpose. So we adapted that, and we do that. And part of that is reflective practice. Of course, it is. It's something we all have to do as physios and sports scientists to maintain our registration. But more recently, we've sort of turned it on its head a little bit, and we've really changed the way we're doing the PDR process. And a big part of it is like an own critical review of yourself. So it's like really delving deep into self and thinking back. And again, this is not from one source. This is from evidence, from listening to lots of different podcasts and how different people do things, talking to colleagues. But it's ultimately delving deep into yourself and thinking about why are you where you are today. Why are you here? What's your journey? Going back, I know you asked a similar question, but going back, if your old self, what's your future self, what would they think about the position you're in now? Would they be pleased? Would they be dissatisfied? So I think it starts with that, but then also then an individual reflection in how you're competing in your role, looking at the performance enablers that you might need to do that role. And then you then come into the PDR process, and I've been in PDR processes before, and I'm sure many people have, where you sort of like, no one can be arsed doing it. You start at the opposite, and you're just sort of doing it as quickly as you can. So it's a tick box exercise. But the more you look into it, there's such important. And again, it's part of how do we give people the vision of what we're trying to achieve here. How do we spread that word? And the PDR process is a key thing of that. The PDR process gives us support, and it also gives us the challenge. And as I say, where that's the formal process, it's what the informal process is. So we have an informal section, which again is more about the reflection. So looking at simple things like the Gibbs cycle, what went wrong, what were my feelings, what could I do different next time, and having that documented. So ultimately, well, as I say, this is work in progress for us at the moment, and we've just started rolling them out. But ultimately, each member of staff will have their own, their own deck, their own portfolio, which they can. Not a record of achievement folder, those old brown folders, but it's something that's they own it, rather than just coming into a PDR process doing a one SWOT analysis or something, and it being a very sort of vague process and not followed up in a timely manner. This hopefully gives real ownership to people and helps them on their development journey in their career.
Brilliant. We'll move on to some of the quick fire questions, Simon. The first one I always ask is, who have been some of the biggest influences on your career so far?
Yeah, I think the obvious one, and that one is obviously your family, your close family and friends. But from sort of a purely professional perspective, I think the Bible of sports medicine, which is the Godfathers, Peter Bruckner and Kieran Kahn. I've probably had every copy of that book, and I think that is a well-thumbed resource. And although you appreciate that the publishing process means that they're not always up to date in current research, but it's always been a good guide for me. And I think early in my career, it was having, as I say, I came into this environment with no one senior to me from a physiotherapy perspective, so I had to sort of reach out and try and find my own mentors. So I used to use Gary Lewin a lot and Ian Beasley, who were absolutely fantastic when they were at Arsenal. They'd even come and give me a second opinion. I could drive it down the road for us, so I could drive a player to their training ground, and they'd help me and have a look over things. And then all the consultants that I've worked with over those years as well. Every time I go to a consultant's office, I treat it as a CPD session, and not just about their technical knowledge and expertise, but also the soft skills, how they deliver information. The old school word is bedside manner, but what is that, and how does it work, and that sort of stuff. So there's lots of people, too many to mention, who sort of really influenced my career from that side of it. I think then looking closer to home in the football club, certainly our chairman, Pete Winkleman. So as I said, my career has progressed with the football club, and he's sort of opened lots of doors for me, put trust in me and faith in me, and shown good loyalty at times as well. So I think he comes not from a physio, he comes from a music background, but I've learned a lot from his business acumen and how he leads and how he manages people. And then probably the final one is Adam. So Adam Rossell, we spoke about before. So Adam, was my student originally. He came in on the student placement, but together both our careers have developed side by side, and as much as I'm sure he's learned a lot from me, I've also learned a lot from him, probably a lot more than he realises. And I think, he's been a big influence on the football club and the department we've created.
Brilliant. What would you say your biggest strength is as a practitioner?
From a practitioner point of view, I mean, there was different areas. I, clinical interest. Obviously it's football, so hamstrings, ankles were big areas of clinical interest to me. But I think probably sort of globally, it's probably more ability, like a problem-solving ability. So I said I've got a thing where I want solutions, not problems, and that was something I'd always sort of take on to me whenever there was anything happening. And I sort of thrive in that environment. I'm very inquisitive. So if you give me an acronym, FFF, I want to know what it stands for. I want to know everything about something, and I think that comes down from being a physio as well. So you never knew what was going to come through into your treatment room. You never knew what your next injury was going to be, and although you have a good baseline, you're a good generalist, there would be things you think about what we're going to do with this one, and who do I need to see, who do I need to speak to, where we're going to get to the end of this one. And now in the environment now, I never know what's going to come through my door now. Never mind my treatment room, so the irrigation system's broken, or the kit's not turned up on time, or I think we had a problem when you came to the event the other day that I was trying to sort out. So I think just finding quick solutions to people's problems and the problems that I'm faced is probably the strength, and maybe something that the chairman recognises me when we put me into this role.
Simon, going back to time in the Northwest, a younger Simon, setting out on your career, what would be your top bit of advice?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one, and I've heard other people answer this and given it thought, because ultimately all the decisions I've made over this time has got me into the position that I'm very happy in. And look, I'm not in a Premier League football club, and all the grandeur that comes with that, but also all the stress. But I'm very happy where I am. So I think the journey has been a good one for me. But I guess early days I probably would have benefited from a mentor. And I know this is something that is often talked about now, and it wasn't really a thing in those days. Social media and all those sort of things weren't as well, they weren't around. Never mind being prolific, they weren't even around. But to have more of a formal mentor, go into formal mentorship with someone, and as I say, I did have people I could bounce ideas off and get advice from, but to have something a bit more formal, I think would have been really beneficial early on in my career, and something I always recommend now to the younger practitioners that come through our door.
And you referenced it before, your approach to CPD, continued learning, how do you go about that now?
Well, I think moving away, I've had to really look at this in great detail, because moving away from the clinical side, I still want to identify as a physiotherapist, which means I need to keep practicing my skill set, and I'll still go next door and help out when I can do, when I'm not standing on anyone's toes, of course, as I said before. But I still do that. But I enrolled on a professional doctorate in elite performance at UPlan, so I'm getting a massive CPD hit from that at the moment, and it's a brilliant course, and it's essentially I'm getting credits for doing the job I'm doing, but it's encouraging me to really sort of look at it from a real evidence base on all the decisions we're making. So I'm really enjoying that. And then I think in multimedia, sort of CPD activities. So it's Twitter, it's podcasts, it's going to networking events, going to conferences when they come up. I think there's probably been, when I think back earlier in my career, there was a lot of FA derived conferences, and probably not as many as there used to be. It feels like there's not as many as there used to be, because of the the dominance of social media and podcasts and and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's something that's really important, to get out and do the networking events and get to meet people as well, rather than just sort of listen to what you've got to say on a podcast. So I try and do that. And then the other thing is touchline conversations. I just could never get enough of them. And again, I don't know if that still happens as much as it used to. It doesn't feel like it does at times. But connecting to the opposition physio or sports scientists before the game, having a beer with them after the game. We've all got the same problem. We're all trying to find solutions to the same problems, and it's so important just to have those open and honest conversations. And I think I'm not the first to say, and I won't be the last, but there's often a lack of information transfer, because at the end of the day we're competing against each other. So I think those touchline conversations are really important to find out what the people are doing in sort of an informal environment.
Brilliant. Before I let you go, Simon, you mentioned about reading a few leadership books recently. Have you got any recommendations?
Yeah, so the one I'm reading at the moment is probably a really good one, and it goes back into us getting the vision right. And as a football club, we're really unique in the fact, we're one of the youngest football clubs. Depends where you read, but probably the youngest. We're not 20 years old yet, and it's how you tell your story. So there's lots of clubs. Sheffield Wednesday, you can go back to 18 whatever it was and talk about the miners, and they got the Wednesday off, and that's why they're called Sheffield Wednesday, or as the story goes. Whereas we've not got that. So it's finding a unique way to tell our story. And the book that's really helped me is a book by Owen Eastwood called Belonging. So I don't know if anyone's, if you've read that yourself, but I'd really recommend it if you've not read it. It gives a real sort of unbelievable insight into how important knowing your story is, how your story, but the organisation's story, and how you tell that. And he's done a lot of work with England football and various rugby organisations as well. So that's a really good book.
Brilliant, Simon. Thank you very much for coming on, mate. I appreciate you giving me the time. If anyone wants to give you a follow over on Twitter, it's just your name, isn't it? Simon Crampton over on Twitter. Yeah.
I'm that old. I had an original Twitter account where I didn't have to have any funny little letters after it.
Brilliant, mate. Well, thanks a lot, and all the best going into the weekend as well.
Cheers, Ben. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. Take care.